Harrison Graham and Chase Sr. here on Any Given Thursday by Chat Sports. Let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks here, who sit 7-4 after their loss to the Chicago Bulls on Wednesday night. Lost by 10 in Chicago. Certainly not a bad loss the way the Bulls have been playing. But, Chase, I talked about this on Mavericks Today, actually yesterday on Wednesday afternoon, and said, because the Mavs were 7-3 heading into that game, but I posed the question, are the Mavs just a team that beats bad teams and loses to good teams, or are they actually a legitimate team? I wanted to watch this game, which I did, and they were very competitive, but they lost. I don't know how to feel about this team. I still think it's too early to determine if this is a real contender or not.
Well, I think throughout the first couple of weeks of the regular season, they have been one of those teams that beats up on the bad squads and then loses to some of the quality teams.
Yep.
Now, here's the deal with how that kind of constructs in the NBA. If you're one of those clubs who is about mediocre in terms of talent, you're going to be able to win a lot of basketball games. So I still think Dallas can win anywhere between 40 and 50 games because they have one of the best players in Luka Doncic, who we'll talk about here in just a bit. But as of right now, a little bit concerned, and I was concerned going into the season about how they match up against some of the premier squads.
Yeah, this feels kind of like a 5 seed to me in the West, where like they'll win 90% of the games against inferior talent, and they'll win 25% of the games against the true contenders, and that'll probably add up to about 47 wins or something like that at the end of the day. Let's talk about Luka here. Struggling just a bit. I mean, he's certainly not James Harden struggling. He's still playing at a high level, but for his standards, his splits have certainly been down. The three-point shot hasn't been there. The free throws continue to be problematic, dating back to last year. Not to Ben Simmons level, of course, but about 70%, which he has too good of a stroke to shoot 70% from the free throw line in his fourth year in the NBA. Again, Chase, he hasn't been bad, but you look at the numbers here, under 44% from the floor. 43.3 isn't bad, but it's not great. 28.6 from three last year. He elevated that to 35. I think the hope was to get that up to 37 or 38 this year. He's about 10% below that. The three-point shot has always been hot and cold for him, but it's been cold all season. He's kind of playing like at a C-plus level for his standards right now. The good news is his C-plus is still a top 15 player in the NBA.
Yeah, we're seeing something very, very fascinating in the early portion of this season, Harrison. It's the fact that some of the best scorers across the NBA are struggling mightily to shoot the basketball. Now, a lot of people are probably like, why? Why is that happening? So the NBA changed from a Spalding basketball to a Wilson basketball. And when shooters say that that's the reason why they're struggling, the smallest things can throw a shooter off, just like the smallest of things can affect a pitcher or a batter or a golfer. And I think that these shooters and these bucket getters can't really get a feel for the basketball because Luka Doncic, let's be real, he has the talent to be a 45 to 48% shooter from the field, and he should be between 35 and 40 from distance. He's not even close to that right now, but nor is Bradley Beal, Damian Lillard, even Steph Curry's numbers are down significantly as well. I think once they get used to the basketball, maybe these shooting numbers are going to improve. So I'm not quite hitting the panic button just yet.
The good news for Luka is his splits aren't off a cliff compared to some of these other guys. I mean,
Beal and Lillard have been bad. Bad.
Yeah, Beal's under 40 from the field and like 26 from three. I mean, it's been absolutely abysmal.
Honestly,
Lillard's
might be worse
cold.
than that.
Jason Tatum hasn't shot the ball that well either this year. I'm not worried. I think he's going to be fine. The good news is, he's still playing at a plus level overall. He just hasn't been, the MVP favorite that Vegas told us he was coming into this season. Get your votes in. W for Ward, F for Fine. I'm not worried about Luka Doncic. I'm more worried overall about the Mavericks' offensive flow. The defense has been much better under Jason Kidd, is the offense going to get at least close-ish to the Rick Carlisle level? Because I think you knew when you made a coaching change, Jason Kidd was a part of this Lakers staff the last couple of years that was top 3 defensively the last couple of years. So you figured that side of the floor would be much better. But the offense has fallen pretty far compared to what we've seen with Rick Carlisle. Now, it's the law of averages, right? I mean, if you're a better defensive team, chances are you're going to be a worse offensive team. It's hard to be a run and gun, let's score 115 points a game, and still lock down on defense. But I don't think the expectation was for the offense to be, bottom 12 to 13 in the NBA.
Yeah, and you can say I'm not worried about Luka Doncic, and I'm not really worried about Luka Doncic either. My only issue with Luka, I know that he was excellent for Slovenia in the Olympics, taking them to the Olympic Games for the first time, able to medal for the first time. I know he put in a lot of work and played a lot of basketball during the offseason, but when I watch him, that level of explosion isn't quite there. And Luka Doncic has never been the twitchiest guy, but is he a little bit overweight? I think when you watch him, he looks a tad overweight. Again, I'm not too concerned about this. I think over time, he's going to slim down. He looks nothing like James Harden, whose feet are slow, his handle is slow, his shooting numbers maybe even worse than Luka Doncic, but I think Luka is rounding himself into shape, and this has been somewhat of a concern over the last couple of years with people inside and outside the organization, that he's kind of a little bit pudgier. Now, again, Luka Doncic doesn't have the body makeup of being some bodybuilder who's cut and ripped, but I think he's just a little bit overweight, and because of that, his numbers have fallen off just a bit. Again, not concerned, just pointing that out.
The thing with Luka is he's always kind of had that baby fat look, you know, where like
kind of like me.
He's never gonna be super ripped and cut like a LeBron or someone like that, or even like I don't know, what's another good example? Even like a Jason Tatum, where like
a Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, he's never going to be that. But I think there's something to that. Trim some of that body fat off. And look, he's 22. That could still be. He just has some of that youth in him a little bit.
He's not strip club James Harden last year.
No, he's not wearing the fat suit like Harden was.
No.
Or he's not Zion. I mean, my God, Zion could play left tackle for the Cowboys right now. No, you don't want that if you're Zion Williamson. You kind of see the point of the stats by season. We've run through a couple points per game and 3-point. We'll bring in fellow MFFL Sam Brown in here. Give us your thoughts on Luka and the Mavs right now.
First off, I don't think we should move past the fact that Chase was slightly fat shaming. But
I used to be fat at one time, so I have no room to talk.
I kind of still am.
I used to be pudgy like Luka.
That's fair. That's neither here nor there. I digress. I think you're starting to see with the Mavs what you see with every new coach, where the offense is just lethargic because they're not picking up on all the little nuances. How do you adjust when you're playing against the zone? How do you adjust when you're playing against man? How do you adjust when you get double team down low? There's just a couple. It's just a lot to work through, I think.
And it doesn't help who we'll talk about Kristaps Porzingis in a moment, where he's constantly in and out of the lineup again. I mean, and that's really the KP dilemma, which we'll get into once again here, is when the guy you've paid to be your second best player is in and out of the lineup constantly, it becomes hard to find a rhythm offensively. It just does. So we'll dive into that even deeper in just a moment. But first, subscribe to Dallas Mavericks today at youtube.com/MavsTV. We're plugging out 3-4 videos a week over there, keeping you guys up to date with everything surrounding your Dallas Mavericks. So if you're a true MFFL, go subscribe. If you're watching on our Mavs channel, just hit that red subscribe button. All right, let's talk about KP. Bleacher Report listed out a biggest disappointment player for every single team. They had KP for the Mavs. Now, ironically, as the future is still to be determined for Porzingis, he actually is coming off probably his best game of the season against the Chicago Bulls. But kind of the point I mentioned a moment ago, Chase, is the constant in and out of the lineup due to the health. It just makes it challenging for a team to figure out, okay, who are we when he is in the lineup? Who are we when he's not? Because he's constantly in and out.
And that's the thing with Kristaps Porzingis. It's the inconsistency, not just with his play and production, but his availability on the basketball court. So it's really hard with a new coach, as Sam had mentioned, to find that rhythmic form of consistency, continuity, getting this offense and a new system to gel together. And then he's been in and out of the lineup, and then his play is so sporadic as well. That's been my problem with Kristaps Porzingis. The talent is certainly there. The production just wavers dramatically.
The good news for the Mavericks is despite some of the offensive challenges, despite Kristaps missing about half the games, I mean, they're right there. I mean, they're 7-4. It kind of goes back to what we said earlier. They've taken care of business against bad opponents. They haven't fared as well against good opponents. But, hey, you take care of business in those games you should win. You're going to be well above 500 at the end of the year. You kind of look all the way down at 8. I mean, there are a couple of games ahead of Memphis, Sacramento, et cetera. So they're in a good spot in a very deep, once again, Western Conference. Coming up, though, it definitely kicks into gear at San Antonio. Denver comes to the American Airlines Center 2 road games back-to-back there against Phoenix, at the Clippers. We know Luka is the Clippers' daddy, but still, that's going to be a tough
Those are just
tough
facts.
road game. Yeah, you look coming up, some more opportunities, Chase, for Dallas to try and, win some of these 50-50 type of games against these tougher opponents.
Yeah, and that goes back to my original point of just being able to stack wins. This is going to be a Dallas Mavericks squad that's going to get into the playoffs. They should be one of the top 5 teams in the Western Conference, which isn't as deep as it's been in prior years because of a lot of different reasons, injuries being one of those reasons. And against some of the poor teams across the NBA, it's going to be the Mavericks because of Luka being one of the best players in the league who are going to be victorious in a lot of those games. And that's a great example of just being able to stack those dubs, get that confidence together, but also kind of get in step and get in rhythm with that new offensive system.
Hopefully Porzingis can find some rhythm, build off a nice game against Chicago. He's been back for 3 games. 2 of them have been solid, over 20 points against the Celtics on over 50% from the field. He was over 20 points against the Bulls. I believe went 9 for 17 in that game. So 2 out of 3 games, it's pretty solid there. Wasn't very good against the Pelicans, but if he can just stay available, I mean, that is so critical for this team moving forward, because if he's playing for every 2 games he plays, if he's missing 2 more, you just can't find any real continuity within this starting lineup. So hopefully he's able to stat good performances and stay available. I know how you feel about KP, and I'm kind of right there with you, but you don't really have a choice if you are the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, multitude of reasons why I'm out on KP. He has a lot of talent, generational talent, just hasn't been able to stay healthy enough. And because of those health issues, his play and production have just been way too sporadic for me. So we can look at what he did against the Chicago Bulls, and he was very good against Chicago. But can I count on KP on a night-in, night-out basis? History shows me, at least recent history shows me, throughout his entire Dallas Mavericks tenure, that you can't trust him. And I don't trust him on top of the fact that he's getting paid a large sum of money, and I don't think he's lived up to the expectations of being worthy of that price tag.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't. There's almost nothing he can do that would justify that contract at this point. I mean, unless he's healthy for the remainder of that contract and is averaging 20 and 10, there's no way he'll ever live up to that. But if you're the Mavs, you just have to accept that fact, because you can't go back in time and change that decision. So it is what it is. What are your guys' confidence level in KP? Scale it from 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being very confident. I mean, it's like a 3 for me. He's still a good player when he plays, but he's not a great player, and he just doesn't play nearly often enough. So let us know what you guys think down in the comments.